Hi, I'm Jordan Bell. I'm going to be doing a synopsis summary type video for the Halo fiction stemming from Precursors all the way to the activation of the Halo array. Now, this video isn't meant to be a substitute for the novels or anything like that. It's just supposed to maybe help you understand some stuff a little bit more if you're confused about it or stuff like that. If there are any mistakes in the video or anything that I got wrong, please let me know, because I don't think that there are, but you never know. And there's always the problem that with the new Halo 4, 5, and 6 and the last Forerunner novel, that it could completely change something that I said in this video. If that's the case, I'll go back and edit it or just make another one. But all the stuff that I'm going to say in this video is all of the fiction as of now, which includes Halo Cryptum, Halo Primordium, all the terminals, stuff like that. So I hope you like it. Here we go. The Precursors are a powerful species that can create life. They believed in this religion called the Mantle, which pretty much meant that they had to protect all life, and all life is sacred. They judged if a species was worthy of the Mantle, and if that species wasn't, then they were completely erased, all of them. The Precursors had created the species named the Forerunners and tested them. The Forerunners were deemed unworthy of the Mantle by the Precursors and were set to be eliminated. The Forerunners eventually found out about this and were very mad and rose up and killed almost all the Precursors except for some. The Precursors, before their extermination, had made another possible inheritor to the Mantle though. Guess who? Humanity. Now the few surviving Precursors had fled the galaxy and made a plan. This crazy plan was sort of a way to get revenge against the Forerunners, to unify all species in the galaxy, and as a way to test humanity for the Mantle. This plan was the Flood. Many years later, the Forerunners are in complete control of the galaxy. They're in charge of the galaxy and they're keeping peace amongst everyone because they think that they inherited the Mantle from the Precursors. All the information on the Forerunner uprising against the Precursors has been lost throughout time. Humanity is also quite powerful, but the Forerunners and humanity don't really get along that well. Eventually, humanity finds some cylinders of this brown powder. They study and experiment with this powder, and it turns out that this powder is the Flood. The Flood took over all of their experimental hosts and became a parasite that wanted to infect everyone. Humanity waged war against the Flood for a very long time until they had no choice but to flee to a Forerunner-populated world. The Forerunners saw this as an invasion, and to preserve the Mantle, fought a war with humanity. So humanity was fighting the Forerunners and the Flood. The Flood eventually left the galaxy, apparently suffering some large blow or attack from humanity. During humanity's war with the Flood, the Forerunners never knew about them, thus thinking humanity's just invading all of their planets. Humans eventually lost the war with the Forerunners and were literally de-evolved. The Forerunners found out about the Flood and debated for a while on what to do should the Flood ever return to the galaxy. There was one side saying to use a weapon that would eliminate all sentient life in the galaxy so the Flood would starve to death and they wouldn't overrun the galaxy permanently forever. This argument was led by a Forerunner named Faber. The opposing side, arguing that wiping out all life in the galaxy even to stop the Flood was against the Mantle, said that shield worlds should be used, and this argument was led by a Forerunner military leader named the Didact. The Forerunner hierarchy sided with Faber, and the Didact was sent to a secluded state of sleep while the Halo rings were built. The Didact's lover, the librarian, convinced the Forerunner hierarchy, should the Flood return, to allow her to take select species away from the Halo rings, safe from their firing, on a structure outside of the galaxy known as the Ark. That way, when the Flood eventually starves and dies out in the galaxy, all the species on the Ark can be taken back to their homeworlds. 9,000 years later, the Flood returns. The Forerunners, because of their Mantle religion, try to only contain the Flood and not combat them just yet. That didn't work. The Forerunner Flood War begins. Faber, the Forerunner who wanted to use the Halo rings, instructs a Forerunner artificial intelligence named Mendicant Bias to test fire a Halo ring on a world called Sharum Hakor. This test firing liberates a captive called the Primordial. Faber orders Mendicant Bias to take the captive to the Halo ring, Installation 07, for interrogation. Mendicant Bias and the Primordial talk for 43 years until the Primordial finally convinces Mendicant Bias to betray the Forerunners. Apparently, the Primordial is the last Precursor. So now Mendicant Bias is completely against the Forerunners. During all of this and all the war, a young Forerunner named Bornstiller, along with his human friends, Shakas and Riser, find the Didact and take him out of his years of captivity. The Didact, still being completely opposed to the Halo Rings, tells young Bornstellar all about the Halo Rings and the Flood and everything about that. Forerunners mutate to mature. The Didact helps Bornstellar mature and passes along his personality imprint and all of his memories to Bornstellar. Eventually, the Didact, Bornstellar, Shakas, and Riser are captured by Faber, the opposing proponent to the Didact. Faber kills the Didact. Bornstellar is sent back to his homeworld, but starts learning more and more information from his mutation with the Didact and actually starts turning into the Didact. He goes to the Forerunner capital city where Faber is on trial for using the Halo Ring. The Forerunner capital, though, is attacked by Mendicant Bias, the now rampant turned AI. Bornstellar, now almost completely the Didact, escapes and makes it to the Ark, where he meets up with his wife, the Librarian, who's been collecting species and preserving them on the Ark. During the attack from Mendicant Bias in the capital city, the two humans that were with Bornstellar, Shakas and Riser, crash land on Installation 07, the Halo Ring controlled by Mendicant Bias and the Primordial. The two are split up and Shakas meets a group of local humans. They tell him of how they live in fear all of the time, and some of them are kidnapped and taken to a, quote, palace of pain. In actuality, they're taken to be tested. Faber wanted them to be tested so he could find out the apparent cure to the Flood that humanity had found many years ago during the First War with the Flood. He did this by finding and excavating all of the Gaia in each of the humans. I think that's how you pronounce it. Gaias or Aegeas, however you want to pronounce it, is a genetic code that gives you certain instructions that you must follow at some point in your life. This is imprinted on you at birth by the Librarian. It can also give you the imprint and memories of someone that has died. Faber thought that the Gaias on each of the humans originated from someone from the human flood war, and he thought that that person might have information on the supposed cure to the Flood. Shakas leaves the little human colony and goes out to search for Riser. He's accompanied by a local girl named Venevra, who he kind of has a little crush on. They walk all around the ring. And walk. They find Riser, but eventually end up at Mendicant Bias's lair. The ancient human memories from Venevra, Shakas, and Riser are all excavated and put into monitors. Monitors, if you don't know, are just floating AI computer constructs. Mendicant Bias takes the exhausted Shakas to the Halo Ring's control room so it can reposition itself to avoid an approaching planet. Bias connects Shakas to a flood-infected Forerunner, and just as they are about to move the Halo Ring, the Didact arrives. Bias escapes, but the Didact now controls the Halo Ring. Shakas, mortally wounded, is taken with the Didact to face the Primordial. The Didact questions the Primordial. The Primordial says a lot of really weird and cryptic things. He says that the Flood and the Precursors are no different, Forerunners were never meant to inherit the mantle, and that the cure that the Forerunners thought that the ancient humans found wasn't actually a cure, but the Flood choosing not to infect humanity because of the Precursors' major plan. So all of those tests that Faber had ordered were pretty much useless. Those tests were actually the Primordial infecting humans. Because guess what? The Primordial, the last Precursor, is infected by the Flood. And he may or may not be a grave mind, which is sort of a centralized consciousness when a flood mass gets large enough. Primordial also keeps on talking about unity and sweet, quiet wisdom. He also says some other really creepy stuff, like that some precursors escaped the galaxy and creation continued. He also says that humanity will rise up again and be tested for the mantle. The last thing that the Primordial says before he's killed by the Didact is that another will be freed. Now, all the stuff that the Primordial said about there being no cure to the Flood and that the Flood and the Precursors are the same, we don't know how truthful the Primordial is or how accurate he is, so it could turn out that he was wrong or that he was just lying, so keep that in mind. Shakas, nearly dead, has his mind put into a monitor. It's implied who this monitor is, but it's not 100% confirmed. The Forerunner war with the Flood continues. The Forerunners eventually realize that the only way to save the future of the galaxy is to wipe it of the Flood's food. The Forerunners, after all this time, eventually realize the potential in humanity and make them reclaimers, the inheritors of the mantle. The Librarian, still selflessly bringing as many species as she can to the Ark, becomes stranded on Earth. The Librarian and the Didact, who is on the Ark, talk via terminals. As the Flood become dangerously close to overtaking the galaxy completely, the Librarian begs the Didact to activate the halos from the Ark. She knows that this will kill her, but the Didact can't seem to accept it. The Didact eventually realizes what he has to do. The Halo Array is activated. That is everything summarized in Halo lore from Precursors all the way to the Halo activation. I want to thank my friend Chris Hernandez and my friend on the Waypoint forums, Decepticon Cobra, for helping me edit over some stuff that I had and some questions that I had. Really do appreciate all of you watching it. I really do. If there are any mistakes, please let me know. I do want to fix them. I really hate mistakes. Maybe it's because I was called one for most of my life, but that's just me. Anyway, again, thank you so much for watching. You have a great day.